Okay, so I'm here with my friend, Dr. Greg MacDonald, and can you tell us about your position at the University of Florida?
Sure. I'm a professor of agronomy, although my training is in weed science. So technically, I'm an agronomist and also a weed scientist. And from the agronomy standpoint, I consider myself an international agronomist because I do most of my agronomy work overseas
Okay.
in international development.
Oh, wow. Okay. So where internationally do you focus your efforts?
Um, I think there was a little bit of lag in that, but I think where I've done most of my work is has been in Guyana. So I was in Guyana for 10 years, which is a country on the northern end of South America, just east of Venezuela. But more recently, I've been working in Africa, in Malawi, which is Southeast Africa, and also Western Africa in Ghana. And I also spent about 5 years working in Haiti.
Oh,
And when I say working, I wasn't living in the country, but I was visiting and helping researchers within the country design and implement small trial research, mainly focusing on peanuts.
wow. Okay. So to improve their peanut production, reduce.
Yeah, production, harvest, but what we consider to be the value chain. And the value chain was something that we started about 15 years ago, which was a kind of a precursor of the whole farm to fork. Because basically, what we were doing is we were helping the producers produce peanut, but we were then taking the peanut through small cottage industry processors to make peanut butter that was then used at the school for a local snack.
Okay. Okay. Like value added production.
Correct,
Oh,
correct, and all the things that go along with it. So it's not just growing the crop. It's focusing on the harvesting procedures. Peanuts are very susceptible to a variety of diseases. They also get a lot of storage issues. So focusing on making sure storage is correct and then processing all of the things that kind of go along with taking a product from its raw state, adding value to it to be able to sell it at the local level, and all of those things to make sure that the end product is one, sellable, two, safe, and three, has been through all of the steps, that will help make the business surrounding it successful. So things like accounting, sanitation, all of those types of things that kind of go in with making a food product.
oh, wow.
Mhm.
That is really interesting. Um, what made you choose this field?
Well, the international agronomy side, the opportunities came up, and I just decided why not go ahead, and things kind of evolved on their own. So it wasn't, I didn't really choose to do that. It was something that those opportunities were there to go to a foreign country in the middle of nowhere, and I said, sure, let's go.
Oh,
So that's kind of how it worked out. But my original training is in weed science. So weed science, I got interested in that in a course I had at the undergrad level. It was a very dynamic teacher that taught the weed science course, and I said, well, this is kind of fun. And then I got down to Florida to do my graduate work, and my master's focused primarily on row crops and pastures, weed control in those types of agricultural systems. And then my PhD was more on the invasive side. I kind of got the hybrid of both sides, where I was doing traditional row crop on one end and then the invasive species on the other end. My first job at Georgia was mainly focusing on commercial peanuts, vegetables, pecans, traditional crops, weed control in those crops. And then when I got back down to Florida about 20 years ago, in my current position, I focus mainly on invasive species.
okay. And so when you went to college, did you know that you wanted to study agronomy, or you were inspired by a teacher?
Yeah, I first started out in ag engineering,
Okay.
and then quickly realized that the ag part was fun, but the engineering part wasn't so much fun. So the math and the physics and the engineering components were just a little bit more than what I liked and what I was good at. I was more of a biologist, so
Okay.
then switched gears and went into vegetable crop production. And my undergrad degree is actually in general plant science. So I've got a broad degree of courses, vegetable crop production, weed science, um, so a whole smattering of courses surrounding plants.
Yeah. And now your focus on invasive plants, is it more on the agricultural side or the natural area side?
Um, my work that I do here in Florida is mainly on the natural area side,
Okay.
and I focus more on the uplands side, the uplands or what we would consider to be weeds that are in forested situations, maybe some transitional wetlands, um, things like that. And I help do some lab work and maybe some physiology work, some more fundamental basic work for aquatics, but the majority of my in-field stuff is in the uplands area.
Okay. So what does your day to day look like?
My day to day, unfortunately, surrounds emails. So I get up in the morning and I'll check emails. I'll try to get a list of things that I want to try to accomplish in the morning. But of course, that can change depending on an email or a phone call. Um, I try to touch base with the folks that work with me, so my biologists and also my graduate students. And then depending on, excuse me, whether or not I'm teaching, if I'm teaching that day, I'll probably spend a good bit of time before class going through my PowerPoint, um, maybe tweaking it, doing a couple things to make it more relevant. I'll try to see if I can find a current story that relates with the topic. Um, then I'll teach, and then afterwards, if I usually hold office hours for students, and then if not, then I'll go back to focusing on a research component or something along those lines.
Okay. What's your favorite part of your job?
The favorite part that I have is interacting with students.
Yeah.
So on the teaching side, but also on the graduate side. So that's probably the favorite part of my job.
Yeah. Mentoring students and
Yep,
inspiring them.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And what are the positive impacts that your job has in your
Um,
mind?
I would say what I'd like to see that I've done is train students as to either one, help develop a student at the graduate level that then is going to go out and do the job that he or she wants and really enjoys. And then two, from the classroom side or the direct teaching side, I'd like to um, kind of convey information about ag and about invasive species, about weeds to students. So when they leave my course, at least they get some sort of an interaction and some sort of a kind of a base knowledge that says, oh yeah, I know that weed, this is what we have to do to manage it. So that I'm, imparting some quote wisdom to some of my students, hopefully.
Okay. And it sounds like you make and have made a lot of great impacts internationally, um, especially in, poorer regions where you've been able
Um,
to.
yeah, and I certainly can't take, all the credit or most of the credit. I've worked with good people that have done this as part of their livelihoods. And probably the biggest impact that we've had is the school feeding program that we set up in Guyana is still functional, even after 10 years, well, 15 years now. And we're still feeding school kids peanut butter. So probably anywhere from, it ranges depending on the day and the year, and of course with all the other things going on, but anywhere from 2,500 to 3,000 kids a day.
Oh, wow. Oh
Mhm.
my goodness. Oh, that's
Yep.
amazing.
So,
So if you had this to do over again, would you choose the same career?
given what I know now, yes. It's been a lot of fun so far because of the fact that I do have the flexibility to work on the ag side. I get to travel internationally, and I also get to work with a lot of really good people, both my colleagues on the professional side, but also students in the classroom and also as grad students. So. I'd say it's a pretty good mix of things because I get to. I grew up. My dad was more of an ag per person. My mom was more of a natural area environmentalist. So I'm able to hybridize both of those things together and work on both ends. So it's been fun.
Oh, right. Yeah. And what do you think the future holds for careers in this field?
I think that, from a weed science standpoint, I think there's always going to be a need for weed science because it's like I tell my students, if you ever have a garden anywhere or you're growing anything, chances are you may or may not spray for insects, you may or may not have diseases, but you're always going to weed it. So weeds are always going to be there. So I think that in some form or fashion, I think weed science is going to have a place, whether it's in the ag side or whether it's in the natural area side or wherever. I think there's always going to be issues with unwanted plants, however you want to define them. So I always think there's going to be opportunities there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And what kind of a degree does a person need to do the job that you do?
I think if you're going to teach and uh, perform, the classroom type metrics that I do, certainly at least a master's, more preferably a PhD, or maybe even a doctorate in education. But to teach, particularly at the undergrad level. Now, for the graduate level courses, that requires a little bit more in depth background, and certainly to do a lot of the research that goes along with getting the funding and working with the university system. They're going to want to have a PhD for that. But certainly on the international side, you can do a lot of developed work, particularly if you want to, and you're young and you don't mind living in a foreign country. Certainly, a bachelor's is all you would need. Once again, it's getting those connections. I think the other thing would be to have a second language. That would be a big skill if you wanted to work overseas. If you wanted to work in South America, of course, Spanish. If you wanted to work in Africa, it would be French, because Western Africa is predominantly French. But there again, it's all about establishing connections. It's all about finding the right person. And when an opportunity comes up, you have to take it. If you don't take it, then it's gone. And remember, you can always take an opportunity and turn it down, but you can't ever turn it down if you don't take it.
Oh, that's good advice. Yeah. Okay, well, that's it for my questions. Any last thoughts for budding weed scientists or?
No, I mean, at this point, just you know, what I tell my students is, when you get a job, make sure that you enjoy what you do, you work hard at it, and success will come on its own. So you don't have to worry about trying to be successful. As long as you enjoy it and you work hard, success will be there already.
Well, that's good advice for all of us.
I've been lucky. I've been fortunate that I've been able to link up with good people, and that's a big thing.
Right. Right. Yeah, I don't think you can overstate building connections and relationships with others.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking the time.
No
And
problem.
we'll sign off our interview here.
All righty.